Hello, and welcome to Boring History for Sleep, the show where history whispers instead of shouts. Whether you're listening late at night or during a quiet moment of the day, my job is to gently guide you into peaceful rest. Here, falling asleep in the middle isn't just acceptable, it's encouraged. So lay back, settle in, and let the soft currents of my voice carry you on a slow journey back through time. Tonight, we will explore what life was like in the Soviet Union, not through battles or grand events, but through the calm, everyday moments of ordinary people. We'll stroll through the quiet corners of daily life, warm kitchens and snowy streets, schoolyards and summer gardens, all in a world that once was. Imagine history as a soft lullaby, with the past itself humming a gentle tune. There will be no loud surprises or harsh edges in our story. Instead, we'll drift like a boat on a calm river of memories, moving slowly through scenes of simple, human life across the Soviet era, 1922, 1991. You might catch the distant creak of a tram on its tracks, or breathe in the comforting aroma of freshly baked black bread. You may feel the hush of falling snow outside a lamplit window, or the golden warmth of summer sun on a birch-lined country lane. These sensory details will surround you, inviting you to relax even more deeply. As we begin, remember that you don't need to pay close attention. It's perfectly okay if you drift off to sleep. The story will continue on, softly painting pictures of the past, and you can rejoin it whenever you're ready. If you find wakeful thoughts bothering you, just let them fade into the background as you focus on the gentle images we create. Let your breathing slow. Feel free to close your eyes if you haven't already, and get comfortable in your bed. The goal here is not to learn anything or to stay alert, but simply to enjoy a peaceful journey and fall asleep along the way. After all, sometimes the past is the best. Lullaby. So, join me now in a world long ago and far away, yet filled with familiar comforts. Soothing and slow, our narrative will float from decade to decade, like a feather on the breeze. Each scene will flow into the next, like twilight softly giving way to starlight, guiding you further into tranquility. Tonight, we'll wander through daily life in the Soviet Union, from the early days after the 1917 revolution to the twilight of the USSR in the late 1980 seconds. We'll experience this time not through politics or headlines, but through the eyes of someone quietly living their life, waking up, working, playing, and dreaming under the same sky that we all share. All you need to do is listen softly and let the images form in your mind. If your mind wanders or you fall asleep, that's perfectly fine. I'll be here, calmly narrating the story, ready to welcome you back whenever you return. Now, take a slow, deep breath, and another. Feel the weight of the day melting away. Let's step across the threshold of time together and gently enter the sleepy world of the past. Our journey begins on a quiet morning. Many years ago, a pale light filters through thin curtains, revealing a modest room where an entire family has spent the night. It's early morning in the late 1920 seconds, inside a large communal apartment in a Soviet city. In those days, many families shared one big flat, each family living in a single room of what used to be a grand residence. A long corridor connects all the rooms, and behind each closed door, a different little world is waking up. In one room, high ceilings arch over crowded but cozy furnishings. A bed pushed against the wall, a small table, a few wooden chairs, and a wardrobe scuffed by time. This single room is home for a mother, father, 2 children, and an old grandmother. They all sleep together here, the parents on the fold-out sofa, the children curled up on a makeshift pallet of blankets on the floor, and Granny on a narrow cot by the window. Despite the tight quarters, the atmosphere is one of safety and closeness. The sun is still low, and the city outside is quiet. A faint blush of dawn paints the peeling wallpaper. The grandmother, always an early riser, slowly sits up in her cot, careful not to disturb the others. She slips her feet into worn slippers and drapes a woolen shawl over her shoulders. In the half-light, she moves gently, her shadow dancing on the wall. On a small shelf, the enamel teapot and metal cups glint softly. She picks up the teapot and steps out into the hallway, heading for the communal kitchen to start the samovar for tea. In the corridor, the air is cool and carries the smell of last night's cooking, a whisper of boiled cabbage and fried onions that still lingers. The wooden floorboards creak under her slippers, but the sound is familiar and homey. Along the corridor, a few other doors are beginning to open as neighbors stir. This apartment is home to several families who have been brought together by the housing shortage of a rapidly urbanizing Soviet Union. Each family has its own room filled with their belongings, and they all share the kitchen and bathroom at the end of the hall. Despite the lack of privacy, there's a sense of community here. These neighbors have lived side by side for years, through good times and bad, becoming like an extended family. The grandmother reaches the kitchen, a high-ceilinged room with a large window that opens to a courtyard. In the grey dawn light, she can make out the outlines of multiple stoves and tables. Each family has a small cooking area marked off, with their pots and pans neatly stacked. She shuffles to her family's spot. On the windowsill, she has left a jar of milk overnight. The winter air kept it chilled, just like an icebox. She smiles, recalling how in summertime they hang a little mesh box outside the window to keep butter and perishables, cool in the breeze. Life may be simple here, but they have their clever ways to make do. Working with practiced quiet, the grandmother kindles a small flame on the Primus stove, a little kerosene burner. The faint smell of kerosene and the whoosh of the blue flame igniting are comforting signs that tea will soon be ready. She fills the samovar with water. As it begins to heat, a soft bubbling sound joins the hush of morning. The samovar's little chimney will soon start to sing. While she waits, she pulls a loaf of dark rye bread from the bread box. It's black bread, dense, hearty, and fragrant with sourdough, a staple of every meal. She cuts a few slices with a serrated knife, each slice releasing that deep, malty aroma that fills the kitchen. One by one, other neighbors tiptoe in. A young mother from the room next door comes in holding her toddler, who rests his sleepy head on her shoulder. They exchange polite whispers of Dobroye utro, good morning. Soon the samovar is gently steaming, and the grandmother carefully measures loose tea leaves into a small teapot to make a strong brew called zavaka. She pours a bit of boiling water over the leaves, letting the concentrated tea steep. The rich, tannic scent of tea rises, mixing with the smell of bread. Each family will take a bit of this concentrate and dilute it with hot water for their morning cup. Back in the family's room, the others begin to wake. The father yawns and stretches, trying not to bump the low-hanging lamp above the sofa bed. The children stir under their thick quilt. A boy of about 10 and his younger sister, blinking in the new daylight that peeks through the patterned curtains. They can hear muffled sounds from the kitchen, the clink of a spoon against a teacup, a quiet cough, the murmur of neighbors starting their day. These gentle noises are the household's alarm clock. The mother folds up the bedding, transforming the sleeping area back into a living space for the day. The sofa, once again a couch, is covered with a bright woven throw. She smooths it out and sets a cushion at the back. The children neatly roll their blanket and tuck it into a corner. Living in one room has taught them all to be tidy and efficient. Every object has its place. Soon, the grandmother returns with a small tray. On it sits the family's battered metal teapot filled with zavaka, a kettle of hot water, and the slices of rye bread. The children kneel eagerly at the low table as the adults settle on stools. In the soft morning light, they prepare their simple breakfast. The mother pours a little zavaka into each enamel cup, then tops it up with hot water from the kettle. The father takes a sip and sighs appreciatively. The strong, earthy black tea spreads warmth through their bodies. They eat in a comfortable near silence, broken only by quiet pleasantries. A bit of butter, kept cool on the windowsill overnight, is spread on the black bread. There isn't any jam. Today, sugar is still rationed in these post-war years, but the bread alone is filling and flavorful. The boy swings his legs under the table, already thinking about the day ahead. His little sister cradles her warm cup in both hands, enjoying the grown-up feeling of having tea in the morning. Outside the window, the courtyard is coming to life. Through the lace curtain, they can see a sweep of pale sky between opposite wings of the building. A lone birch tree stands in the yard, its branches bare and etched against the dawn. A few sparrows flit and chirp on the window ledge, hoping for crumbs. The father breaks off a tiny piece of bread and opens the window a crack, placing the morsel on the sill. Immediately, two bold sparrows hop over and start pecking at the treat. The children giggle softly at their antics. A breath of chilly morning air wafts in, carrying with it the smell of snow and coal smoke from a distant chimney. Soon, it's time for the family to disperse for the day. The father must hurry to work. He's a machinist at a factory not far away. He dresses in his plain trousers and a worn jacket, wrapping a thick grey scarf around his neck. The mother helps the children button up their wool coats and find their mittens and knit hats. It's late winter, still cold enough that one can see their breath when they speak. They step into the hallway, joining the gentle commotion of neighbors heading out. In the shared entryway, coats hang on hooks like a colorful gallery of wool and cotton. A scent of shoe polish and wet boots mixes with the ever-present aroma of cooking from the kitchen. Everyone exchanges good mornings and polite nods. One of the neighbors, a university professor living in the room across, is already sweeping the hallway as part of his weekly cleaning duty, humming a folk tune under his breath. Down the stairwell they go, the father leading little Marina by the hand while the mother and son follow. The stairs echo softly with footsteps. This building is old, dating back to before the revolution, and its stone steps have been worn smooth by decades of use. They pass a large window on the landing. Through it, they glimpse the street outside, still quiet and cloaked in a bluish early light. At the front door of the building, everyone parts ways. The father kisses his children on their foreheads and then bends to give his wife a quick, gentle kiss on the cheek. "Do skorogo. See you soon," he says. He pulls on his flat cap and steps out onto the street, joining other workers trudging toward the tram stop. A light snow has dusted the ground in the night, and his boots leave fresh prints on the sidewalk. The mother holds the children back for a moment, watching him go with fond, worried eyes until he disappears around a corner. Now the mother and children head toward the local school, walking hand in hand. The city is awakening around them. They pass the bakery on the corner, its windows glowing with light. Through the glass, racks of newly baked bread are visible, and the warm, sweet scent drifts out every time the door opens. Already a small line of people has formed outside, men and women in thick coats and scarves, patiently waiting their turn to buy the day's bread. In those times, lines were a common morning sight, as certain foods and goods were often scarce. Yet the mood in the queue is calm and routine. Neighbors chat softly to pass the time, their voices forming a low, friendly murmur. One woman laughs quietly at something, and a man behind her smiles, rubbing his gloved hands together for warmth. The mother plans to join a similar line later, to pick up some sugar and perhaps whatever vegetables might be available at the market. But for now, her priority is getting the children to school on time. They walk on. The sky grows lighter with each passing minute, the deep blue of dawn lifting to a paler shade. The streetlights flicker off one by one. Tram tracks run along the center of the road, and soon the family hears the familiar rumble and ding of the first tram of the day approaching. The children pause to watch as it clatters by. A sturdy electric tram car painted red and cream, sparks flying off the overhead wires as it goes. Only a few passengers sit inside at this early hour, their faces turned toward the windows, silhouetted against the dim interior lights. The tram's sound fades into the distance, leaving behind an even quieter street once more. Now they reach school. No, 12. A low brick building with tall windows. A cluster of students in neat uniforms are gathered outside, blowing into their hands to keep warm. The older girls wear brown pinafore dresses with long-sleeved blouses, and some have their hair tied with big white ribbons. The boys wear simple shirts and shorts with knee socks. Some hop from foot to foot in the cold. A few proud red neckerchiefs can be seen tied around the collars of the older children, the mark of young pioneers for those who have turned 10. The atmosphere is lively but polite. When the school's front doors open, a teacher steps out, ringing a small handbell. The tinny ringing sound calls the children to attention, and they begin to line up by class year, shuffling into straight rows. Little Marina is in her first year of school, and she suddenly clings to her mother's skirt, a bit shy. "Go on, dear," the mother whispers encouragingly. The boy, who is in 4th year and already a proud pioneer, gently takes his sister's hand. He will make sure she gets to her classroom. The mother watches as her children join the other students. Marina finds her place among other bundled-up first graders, and her brother stands with his group, chest puffed out, a little importantly. The teacher, a kindly woman with graying hair, nods to the mother in recognition and smiles. With a faint creak of the old-school PA system, a revolutionary march begins to play to signal the start of the day. The music is staticky but triumphant, and the children, in practiced unison, begin to march in place. "Thank you, Comrade Stalin, for our happy childhood," declares a bright slogan painted on a banner above the school entrance, a reminder of the times. The children, of course, are more focused on the day ahead. Lessons, recess, perhaps a snowball fight later, if the teacher allows. Within minutes, the classes have filed inside. The yard is quiet again, except for the fading notes of the march. The mother stands there for a moment, the snow crunching under her boots, and feels a gentle ache of love and hope for her children. She pulls her kerchief tighter around her ears and turns to leave, off to do the day's shopping and chores before her own factory shift in the afternoon. The morning lessons at school proceed calmly. In a bright classroom heated by a clanking radiator, Marina sits at a desk in the front row. She has a stub of pencil in hand and her notebook open to practice writing Cyrillic letters. Sunlight streams through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that dance in the warm air. The teacher moves slowly down each aisle, peering through round spectacles at the children's work. She gently guides a tiny hand here, corrects a letter there. On the wall hangs a portrait of Lenin, watching over the class with a stern paternal gaze, and beside it a red flag is draped for the upcoming May Day celebration. There's also a large abacus on a stand, used for arithmetic lessons, its coloured beads still now in the quiet writing period. Marina swings her feet, which don't quite reach the floor, and concentrates hard on her letters. Mama, she carefully prints in big block letters, as the teacher instructed. Good, she thinks, looking at her work with pride. Her mind wanders a little as she waits for the teacher to check her page. Outside, a light snow flurry has begun, and flakes twirl lazily past the window. She imagines them as little dancers, twirling to the music of silence. The class is so quiet that the only sounds are pencils scratching paper and the faint tick of the wall clock. In the classroom next door, her brother's fourth-year class is a bit more energetic. They are reciting a poem in unison, led by a young language teacher. It's Pushkin's Winter Morning, a cheerful description of a sunny, frosty day, and their childish voices rise and fall in a rhythmic chant. The words paint pictures of sparkling snow and blue skies, making the children smile as they speak them. When they finish, the teacher offers gentle praise. Many of these students will know countless poems by heart before they finish school, a common point of pride in Soviet education. At mid-morning, the school has a short recess. In the courtyard, the earlier shyness has vanished as Marina chases a classmate in a game of tag. Their boots patter on the packed snow. Her brother and some other boys are huddled together trading collectible stamps and matchbox labels, a popular hobby, whispering about a prized new space-themed stamp one of them got. The sky has cleared to a pale winter blue, and the sun, though weak, glints on the icicles hanging from the roof. There is laughter, rosy cheeks, puffs of breath in the cold air, and for a moment, indeed, it looks like a happy childhood. Back at the communal apartment, lunchtime approaches. The father comes home briefly for his break. His factory is close enough that he can walk. His cheeks are red from the cold, and he eagerly sniffs the air as he removes his boots at the door. The grandmother has been cooking a pot of cabbage soup, on the shared stove, and its savoury aroma fills their room. The rich scent of stewed cabbage, carrots, and a meaty bone wafts invitingly. She has also managed to get a few potatoes and has boiled them with a pinch of dill. It's a humble meal, but nourishing. As an old proverb goes, Shchida kasha, pishka, nasha. Cabbage soup and porridge are our food, capturing the simplicity of the Soviet diet. There might not be much variety, but there is comfort in these traditional flavors. They sit together and ladle the hot shchi into bowls. Each spoonful is warming, colored a soft golden from carrots and cabbage, with a dollop of sour cream melting on top. They eat it with yesterday's black bread, which is a bit dry now, but perfect for dipping into the broth. As they eat, they talk quietly about their day so far. The father mentions that a new machine arrived at the factory, a source of excitement for the workers, who gathered to see it unloaded. The grandmother mentions that one of the neighbours stood in line at dawn, and managed to get fresh milk from a nearby dairy shop. "Maybe tomorrow will be our turn for milk," she says hopefully. The mother hasn't returned yet. She's likely still out searching for sugar or kerosene. They set aside a bowl of soup and a piece of bread for her, keeping them near the stove to stay warm. After lunch, the father must depart again, giving his mother a grateful pat on the shoulder for the meal. The grandmother washes up the bowls at the shared sink at the end of the hall, scrubbing quickly with a rag and a bit of coarse brown laundry soap. She hums an old lullaby to herself as she works, her thoughts already on the grandchildren she will pick up from school in the afternoon. In the early afternoon, sunlight floods the communal apartment's courtyard, reflecting off the snow and making patterns on the ceiling of their room through the window. A group of younger children who live in the building play outside, bundled in layer upon layer. They've built a lopsided snowman and decorated it with a carrot nose and a hat made from a bucket. Their giggles echo between the walls of the surrounding apartments. Upstairs, some of the building's babushkas lean out of the windows to watch the children and chat with each other, keeping a protective eye. One grandmother, 3 windows over, shakes out a rug over the balcony railing, sending a cascade of snow crystals swirling. By mid-afternoon, the mother and grandmother have returned home with the children. After school, they made a stop at the market. Now Marina proudly shows off a tangerine she was given, a rare treat from the south. Such fruits are uncommon in these times, so they will save it for the whole family to share later, perhaps slicing it thin so everyone can have a taste of sunshine. The grandmother managed to buy some buckwheat groats and a few beets, and even a small piece of sausage from the gastrolior delicatessen, after waiting in line. These will become tomorrow's meals. The mother is tired but satisfied. Running errands often meant standing in multiple queues and walking all over the neighborhood, but she enjoys the small victory of finding what they need. She removes her headscarf and rubs her hands together by the stove to warm them. The late afternoon is dedicated to quiet tasks. The children sit at the table doing homework in the golden slant of winter sunlight. The boy carefully writes out his arithmetic problems, tongue poking from the corner of his mouth in concentration. Marina draws pictures on the margins of her alphabet workbook, little houses and smiling stick figure cats. The grandmother nods off in the armchair by the window, her knitting needles idle in her lap. From another room down the hall, the muffled strains of a radio can be heard. Someone is listening to a classical music program, and the delicate notes of a Tchaikovsky waltz seep softly through the walls. The mother is on evening shift at the factory this week, so she has a couple of hours before she must leave again. She uses the time to do a bit of mending. Sitting by the lamp, she patches the knee of her son's trousers with steady, neat stitches. As she sews, she glances affectionately at her children bent over their books, and then at her own mother dozing peacefully. Moments like this, quiet and unremarkable, fill her with a gentle contentment. Outside, dusk begins to gather early, as it does in the Russian winter. The light in the room fades from gold to a dim grey. The mother lights the lamp. Its glow is soft and orange, casting long shadows of the furniture against the patterned wallpaper. The kids finish their work just as the grandmother wakes from her nap, blinking and then smiling when she realizes she'd drifted off. They decide to have an early supper together before the mother goes to work. Tonight's meal is simple and hearty. Buckwheat, kasha, porridge, cooked with a bit of butter and salt, and the small link of sausage, sliced thin, so everyone gets a few bites. The steaming kasha has a toasty, nutty smell that fills the kitchen as they cook it. They supplement it with the leftover cabbage soup and bread from lunch. Gathered around the little table, they eat by lamplight. The children don't mind that it's the same black bread and soup as earlier. In fact, everything tastes even better now because they've worked up an appetite. The boy excitedly recounts how his teacher praised his recitation, and Marina chimes in about the snowman the kids built at recess. The adults listen with encouraging nods and the occasional chuckle. After dinner, as promised, the mother brings out the tangerine to share. The bright citrus scent bursts into the room as she carefully peels the fruit. The children's eyes go wide with anticipation. She divides the tangerine into sections. There are exactly enough for each of them to have one wedge, with an extra for the grandmother. They pop the pieces into their mouths simultaneously. The sweet tart juice is like a drop of summer on their tongues, a tiny luxury in the middle of winter. Marina giggles because it tickles her taste buds, and her brother closes his eyes to better savor it. The grandmother holds hers under her nose first, inhaling deeply. Ak, apelsin, she sighs happily, using the Russian word for tangerine. For a moment, the room is filled with an almost festive cheer, simply from that small treat. Now it's fully dark outside. The street lamps cast a soft glow that seeps in around the edges of the heavy curtains. Snow is falling again, gently, in big, slow flakes that pile on the windowsill. The mother must depart for her shift. She wraps herself in a thick coat with a high collar and puts on her worn leather boots. The children hug her tightly around the waist. Be good and listen to babushka, she reminds them. The grandmother helps adjust her daughter's knit hat snugly over her ears, then sees her out to the corridor. They exchange a few last words in hushed tones. The grandmother will keep some tea aside for when she returns late at night. With a final wave, the mother disappears into the cold evening, a gust of snowy air following in as she exits. Back inside, the grandmother and children settle in for the coziest time of day, the winter evening routine. The boy lights a stubby candle on the table to add a bit of extra light. They are saving electricity. Its flame flickers, reflecting in the dark window like a tiny star. The grandmother produces a small box of treasures from a shelf. It contains the children's favorite collection of postcards and pictures. Tonight, they flip through these together. There are colorful postcards of Red Square in Moscow, of far-off cities like Prague and Budapest, sent by a cousin in the army, and a cherished photograph of the children's own parents on their wedding day. The grandmother tells gentle stories to go along with each image. This is Moscow in springtime, she says, showing a postcard with blooming lilacs by the Kremlin walls. I visited once when I was a young girl. Oh, the boulevards were full of blossoms. Her voice is low and melodic. The children lean against her, imagining their stout, grey-haired babushka as a young girl wandering among flowers. After a while, Marina grows sleepy. She climbs onto the broad windowsill, which in these old buildings is deep enough to sit on, and peers out into the night. Snowflakes dance under the cone of light from a street lamp. On the opposite side of the courtyard, someone has hung a lantern outside their window, perhaps to scare off mischievous spirits, as old superstitions go, and its tiny flame also flickers in the darkness. It's as if the building has fireflies. The grandmother decides it's time for the little one's bed. She helps Marina change into a simple flannel nightgown, slightly too big, and handed down from a neighbor's child. The boy, feeling grown up, insists he is not tired yet. He sits quietly reading a well-worn adventure book by candlelight, a tale of brave Arctic explorers, and imagines himself in faraway snowy lands. On the stove, the grandmother places a small enamel pot of milk to heat, managed to get some earlier. She mixes in a spoon of honey from a jar she keeps for special remedies. Soon, she has a cup of warm, sweet milk ready, a nighttime treat for the children to ensure they sleep soundly. Marina drinks hers eagerly, the warmth spreading through her body and making her eyelids heavy. Finally, the grandmother lifts her granddaughter onto the high bed tonight. With the mother at work, Marina gets to sleep on the sofa bed beside Babushka. She tucks the thick quilt around the little girl, making sure her shoulders are covered and her small body is enveloped in warmth. Marina's eyes are already half closed. The boy, seeing this, yawns and concedes that he too is tired. He lays out his own bedding on the floor mat they use and curls up under a pile of blankets and an old coat for extra weight. Skazku raskazat, shall I tell a story? The grandmother whispers. The children murmur assent. Outside, the wind picks up just a little, and a whistling can be heard as it blows through a gap in the window frame. The grandmother begins a familiar tale, the story of the firebird. Her voice is low and steady, with a sing-song cadence that is as soothing as a lullaby. She tells of a prince wandering through a moonlit forest, the trees sparkling with frost. Marina's hand relaxes its grip on the quilt as she listens. The grandmother describes the firebird, its feathers of gold and scarlet lighting up the darkness. The boy imagines it flying above the snowy treetops, leaving a trail of gentle light. As the story unfolds, the grandmother's voice grows softer and slower. Marina's breathing steadies. She's already asleep, dreaming perhaps of flying firebirds and enchanted gardens. The boy holds out a bit longer, determined to hear the end, but even he cannot resist the drowsiness that creeps over him like a soft blanket. By the time the prince in the story is following the firebird's glowing feathers home, the boy's eyes have closed, his adventure book slipping from his hand onto the floor without a sound. The grandmother finishes the tale in a whisper, her words barely more than breath in the still room. She looks lovingly at her grandchildren, their faces peaceful in sleep. Tenderly, she blows out the candle, then adjusts the lamp to its lowest flame. The room falls into a gentle gloom, illuminated only by the faint light from outside, the snow reflecting a pale luminescence. In the distance, she hears the faint ding of a tram making a last evening run, and somewhere a dog barks twice and then is quiet. She sits for a moment in the rocking chair by the window, watching the snow. It's late now. The only sounds inside are the soft tick of the wall clock and the slow, even breaths of the children. The grandmother allows herself a moment of rest, closing her eyes. In this serene silence, her mind drifts over the day. It was an ordinary day, uneventful, yet full of life's small pleasures. And those, she muses, are what make life sweet. Eventually, she will need to get up and unlatch the door for her daughter's return. But for now, she cherishes the tranquility. Outside, the snowfall has turned the courtyard into a white dreamland. The birch tree is cloaked in powder, and the street beyond is hushed, tire tracks muffled, footprints quickly softened by new snow. The Soviet Union of the 1920 seconds may be full of struggles in the grand scheme, but here, in this one quiet corner, there is warmth, love, and a deep, enduring peace that settles over all, like the snow itself. Time, like the night, flows onward. The scenes of daily life gently change as years pass, but some things, the comfort of family, the routine of each day, remain constant. Now, as the snow continues to fall over our sleepy communal apartment, we will drift further through time, letting the decades turn like pages in a book of memories. the scene shifts to a remote corner of the Soviet Union, far from any bustling city. In fact, for the majority of Soviet citizens in the early decades, home was the countryside. Around 80% of the population lived in rural villages, before industrialization gradually drew people into urban life. Here in one such village, a peaceful winter night has fallen. Tiny wooden houses, called izbas, lie huddled together amid endless snow-covered fields. Their steep roofs are blanketed in white, and smoke rises slowly from chimneys into a sky sprinkled with stars. It's cold outside, the kind of deep cold where the air itself seems to sparkle with ice crystals under the moonlight. The only sounds are the gentle crunch of snow as a lone figure, the village postman heading home late, walks down the lane, and the distant barking of a dog from a far-off farmstead. A pale half-moon casts its glow, illuminating the outlines of haystacks and the skeletal silhouettes of bare willow trees by the frozen river. Inside, one snug little house, there is warmth and light, and the familiar comfort of home. The walls are made of sturdy pine logs, their seams filled with moss for insulation. Dried herbs, bunches of chamomile, mint, and thyme hang from the ceiling beams, releasing a faint, sweet fragrance. In the corner stands a great brick stove, a pechka, which has been roaring all evening and now emits a steady, comforting heat. The stove's plastered sides are warm to the touch. One could even sleep on the broad top of it. And indeed, a small pile of blankets there suggests that children sometimes do. A single oil lamp on the table casts a soft amber glow around the main room, its flame wavering gently whenever a draft sneaks in. There is electricity in this village, but only intermittently, and tonight the power is out. Not that anyone minds much. The oil lamp and the flicker from the stove's open damper provide enough light to see by, and they paint dancing shadows on the timber walls. On a wooden bench near the stove, a middle-aged woman ladles out the evening supper into clay bowls. She is the mother of the household, her hair wrapped in a kerchief, sleeves rolled up. The smell of dinner fills the room. Simple and hearty fare from the village. Tonight it's kartoshka, potatoes baked in the stove's embers until their skins are charred and crisp. She splits one open, and the fluffy white steam wafts up, smelling of earth and warmth. To go with it, there's pickled cabbage, sauerkraut that was put up in big jars during the autumn harvest, and a small crock of salted mushrooms collected from the nearby woods last summer. A jug of rich, creamy milk sits on the table too, fresh from the family's cow that morning, with a layer of yellowish cream still floating on top. The family gathers around the heavy wooden table. There are 3 generations here. The old Dadushka, grandfather, settles himself on the end of a long bench, his back bent, but his eyes still keen. He wears a simple homespun shirt and trousers tucked into felt boots called valenki. By lamplight, the deep lines on his weathered face could be mistaken for shadows of the flickering flame. Beside him, his wife, Babushka, with a round, kind face and silver hair peeking from under a wool shawl, pours everyone a cup of steaming herbal tea from the samovar that sits perpetually at the edge of the stove. The samovar has been quietly bubbling for an hour, making water ready for tea or washing up. Their daughter, the mother of the house, passes out the bowls of food. Her husband, a sturdy man with calloused hands, takes off his cap and bows his head for a brief, silent moment of gratitude, a habit from older times. Their 2 young children climb eagerly onto the bench, sniffing the aroma of baked potatoes with delight. The little girl, about 5, swings her legs under the table, unable to keep still from excitement. Even though this is a regular meal, she's hungry, and it smells so good. Her older brother, around 8, pretends to be grown up and solemn, but he too licks his lips in anticipation. Outside, the wind picks up momentarily, skittering snow against the window panes with a sound like a whispered song. But the thick walls and small double-pane window keep the chill at bay. Inside, it is cozy and warm enough that everyone's cheeks are rosy. The babushka lifts a bowl and inhales the steam. Slava Bogu, she murmurs, an old-fashioned thankfulness, then encourages the children. Eat, darlings, eat, so you'll grow strong. They do not need to be told twice. Each person sprinkles a pinch of coarse salt on their potato and digs in, careful because they are very hot. The children blow on their portions to cool them. The boy mashes his potato with the back of his wooden spoon and mixes in a dollop of fresh butter that melts instantly, releasing a golden trickle into the fluffy white. The little girl prefers hers, unmashed, nibbling the soft insides and then savoring the crisp, smoky skin. The pickled cabbage is tart and crunchy, a perfect bright counterpoint to the potatoes. They sip the hot mint tea between bites, the adults from simple glasses held in pewter glass holders, and the children from enamel mugs. The tea has a bit of raspberry jam stirred in for sweetness, a treat from the summer's canning, bringing a memory of sun-warmed berries to this winter night. There is not a lot of meat. In fact, tonight there is none at all, but no one complains. In the village, meat is reserved for special occasions or for adding flavor to soups. Their supper is filling and comforting, drawn entirely from what they themselves produce or forage. The conversation during dinner is unhurried and sparse. Village people often eat quietly, but it's a companionable silence. The crackle from the stove and the slurp of tea are the background music of their meal. After supper, the mother clears the bowls and sets a kettle on the stove to heat water for washing up. The babushka brings a basket of apples from the pantry, small, wrinkled apples that were picked in the fall and stored cool so they last through winter. Though a bit withered, they are wonderfully sweet. She hands one to each grandchild. The children polish the apples on their sleeves and bite into them, the skin yielding with a soft snap. The grandfather, meanwhile, takes out his pouch of makhorka, homegrown tobacco. He steps through the front door for a quick smoke in the yard. The adults have a rule about not filling the warm house with pipe smoke. Outside, the night air greets him with an icy embrace. He stands on the creaking wooden porch under the starry sky, puffing his pipe contentedly while listening to the distant hoot of an owl. Above, the Milky Way stretches like a bright scarf across the heavens. Far from city lights, the village night sky is a breathtaking blaze of stars. The grandfather finds Orion's belt and North Star, as he does every night, as if greeting old friends. Satisfied, he stamps his feet to knock the snow off his boots and heads back inside, bringing a gust of frosty air with him. Now it's time for the evening's leisurely activities. On one side of the room, near the lamp, the babushka settles into a rocking chair that creaks softly with her movements. She pulls out her knitting, a pair of woolen socks she's been working on for her son-in-law, and her needles click-click in a soothing rhythm. Across the table, the mother is darning a pair of mittens by lamplight, her needle flashing in and out. These quiet moments of handiwork are when the women often share the day's small news or reminisce. But tonight, they are content simply to sit in each other's company, the silence filled by the crackling fire and the hum of the samovar. The father has retrieved a wooden chess set from a shelf. The board is old and a bit scuffed, and the pieces are carved from two different woods, light birch and dark oak. He sets it up on the table and invites his son to play. The boy's eyes shine. He's been learning chess at school from his friends and is eager to challenge his father, even though he seldom wins. They lean over the board, whispering. The father reminds him gently of how each piece moves, using a mix of patience and subtle strategy to teach the game. The boy furrows his brow in deep concentration, moving a knight here, sliding a pawn there, and though his father eventually wins with a checkmate, the game ends with a proud ruffle of the boy's hair and words of praise for how much he's improved. In the opposite corner of the room, on the stove's broad hearth, the little girl is playing with the family cat. The cat, a fluffy grey Mauser, lies stretched out on the warm bricks, purring loudly. The girl dangles a piece of yarn, and the cat lazily bats at it from time to time. This corner of the stove is the coziest spot in Rend, the house. Above it, hanging from a hook, a cast iron kettle gently simmers, keeping hot water ready for tea or washing. A pair of damp felt boots are propped nearby, drying out so they'll be warm for tomorrow. The girl eventually abandons the yarn and instead climbs up onto the pechka itself, nestling into the blankets on the stove's top ledge. Up there, it's almost like a toasty little loft. Many peasants actually sleep on the stove in winter, enjoying the radiant heat. She isn't going to bed just yet, but she likes to perch there, feeling like a bird in a warm nest, observing her family from above while the cat curls around her feet. The grandfather has taken out his balalaika, a triangular three-stringed instrument that has been in the family for ages. He sits on a stool by the stove and begins to strum a quiet melody. It's a slow folk tune, one he learned from his own father years and years ago. The balalaika's sound is soft and tinkling, blending with the fire's crackle. Hearing the familiar tune, the grandmother lifts her voice and sings along very softly, barely above a hum. Her voice is a touch raspy with age, but sweet in its gentleness. The song is about a troika sleigh gliding over the snow and a love waiting by the window, an old romance. The mother joins in humming harmony, and even the father taps his fingers on the table in time. This is a favorite lullaby as well, and the children recognize it from many nights of their childhood. After a couple of songs, the grandfather sets the balalaika aside with a content sigh. It is getting late, and the oil lamp is burning low. The father checks the stove, shuffling a few logs and closing the metal damper part way to keep the coals glowing through the night. The warmth in the house is steady and reassuring, like a big warm blanket enveloping them all. Under the loft of the pechka, the mother and babushka prepare the sleeping areas. In this one-room home, there is no separate bedroom. At night, bedrolls and feather quilts are spread out on the benches or the warm stovetop. The mother lays thick quilts on the wide wooden bench for her father and husband. The babushka, as usual, will sleep on a cot near the stove, and she's already laid her pillow and folded patchwork blanket there. The children will share a broad palati, a wooden platform atop the stove, which is the warmest sleeping spot of all. The little girl, already on the stove, claps in excitement when she sees her brother climbing up the side rungs to join her. They burrow into the soft bedding while their mother fluffs a heavy comforter over them. The boy, drowsy and eyes shining, whispers to his sister that he can see the stars through the small attic window above. Indeed, from the raised stove bed, there's a tiny window set in the eaves, and through it a brilliant star twinkles. The family gathers for a moment to say their gentle goodnights. In the corner, above a small shelf, hangs an old Orthodox icon of St. Nicholas, its painted colours faded. Though religion has been officially discouraged for years, many village homes quietly keep such an icon as a protective charm. The grandmother bows lightly toward it, crossing herself in a quick, discreet motion, an ancient ritual before sleep. Then she leans in to kiss her grandchildren on their foreheads. Spokojnej noci, sweet dreams, she murmurs. The father and mother each take a turn to tuck in the children and give them warm hugs. The cat has already decided it's bedtime and leaps up to join the children, needing a spot at their feet before curling into a furry ball. The oil lamp is extinguished, leaving the room illuminated only by the red glow of embers through a vent in the stove. Shadows deepen, and the shapes of hanging herbs and drying laundry fade into the dark. Only the outline of the window is visible, edged in pale moonlight. The cold outside makes the window glass glitter with a delicate fern pattern of frost. As the family members climb into their respective beds, the grandmother begins to sing a final lullaby, an old cradle song that her mother sang to her. Her voice is very soft, barely audible over the gentle hiss of the samovar, releasing a bit of steam. One by one, other voices join in the lullaby. The mother's alto humming, the father's baritone gently carrying the melody. Even the grandfather adds a quiet, low note, underpinning the harmony. The lullaby is slow and repetitive, like a verbal rocking, with nonsense syllables that have soothed Russian children for generations. Bayu bayu, bayushki bayu. The children's eyes have closed. The little girl has her thumb in her mouth, drifting off with the familiar sound of her family singing. The boy yawns and snuggles deeper under the heavy quilt, feeling the soft weight of the cat at his feet and his sister's small, warm hand in his. He peeks one last time through the tiny attic window at the brilliant stars. In his half-dreaming state, the stars seem to dance in time with the lullaby. Soon, all is quiet inside the izba. Only the muted crackle of a settling log in the stove and the whisper of the wind outside accompany the sleepers. The grandmother's song tapers into silence as she too closes her eyes, her knitting laid aside. Peace fills the little wooden house, a peace that feels deep and timeless, as if nothing of the outside world could disturb this sanctuary. And indeed, at this moment, the outside world is distant. Perhaps miles away, a night train howls faintly as it chugs through the darkness, or an owl calls from the forest. But here, in this village home, time itself seems to slow down. The entire household sleeps in a warm, cocooned stillness. The stove emits a gentle heat that will last till morning, and the old log walls creak occasionally, contracting in the cold, almost like a giant old being, exhaling. Through the frosted window, the moon casts a silver beam onto the floorboards, inching slowly across the room as the night progresses. The Milky Way shimmers above, and if one could stand outside, they would see the quiet constellation of village houses, each with a faint glow in the windows or the dying fire inside. It is a picture of utter tranquility, a world where day's labor is done, and the simple rewards of warmth, family, and perseverance have given way to restorative sleep. In this serene village night, we linger a while, soaking in the feeling of safety and contentment that pervades the little home. How soft is the pillow stuffed with hay and fragrant herbs. How gentle is the grandmother's snore, so soft it's like a purr. How secure the children feel under their grandmother's quilt. In this moment, life is quiet and whole. As the stars wheel slowly overhead and the snowy silence deepens, we drift onward again. Time will carry us out of this village and forward into the next chapters of Soviet life. The decades ahead will bring many changes, new homes, new celebrations, new challenges. But as we have seen, the heart of daily life remains the warmth of loved ones and the rhythms of routine. Let us leave this peaceful village now, carrying its cozy memory with us as we journey on. It is now the late 1950 seconds, and change is in the air. After years of crowded communal living, many Soviet families finally see a dream come true, a home of their own. In cities across the country, rows of new 5-story apartment blocks are rising, built quickly from concrete panels. These are the Khrushchevki, named after Nikita Khrushchev, the Soviet leader who championed mass housing construction. For those who had spent decades sharing kitchens and waiting on housing lists, moving into a private apartment feels like a miracle. Those living in communal flats had long dreamed of a space they wouldn't have to share with others. And now, at least partially, that dream is being realized. We focus on one young family on a cool spring morning in 1960 as they move into their new apartment on the outskirts of a city. The building is plain and boxy, made of white-grey panels with identical windows in tidy rows. There's no elevator, but at just 5 stories high, the climb is manageable. The stairwell smells of fresh lime paint. The walls were recently whitewashed in a mint green up to mid-level, the typical style. The family's apartment is on the 3rd floor, and as they reach the door, marked with the number 12 inches, simple black paint, the husband fumbles excitedly with the key. When the door swings open, morning light from a window at the far end greets them. They step inside and pause, letting the reality sink in. This is all theirs. 2 small rooms, a tiny kitchen, a narrow bathroom. To some, it might seem modest, but to them, it's a palace. The wife clutches her young daughter's hand and smiles, her eyes moist. The little girl, 6 years old, doesn't fully understand why Mama is crying happy tears, but she feels the excitement and skips into what will be her new bedroom, a space barely larger than a walk-in closet. But it has a window just for her, and even a door that closes. The main room, a combined living and sleeping area for the parents, is about 18 square meters. It's empty now, except for a rolled-up rug and a few chairs they've brought with them. But in their minds, they already see it furnished. A fold-out couch that will serve as bed at night, a wall cabinet for dishes and the radio, perhaps a small bookshelf for their beloved volumes of Pushkin and Tolstoy. The floor is plain brown linoleum that gives slightly underfoot. The walls are smooth, coated in a pale cream-colored paint. There is a single overhead light fixture, no chandelier, just a simple white glass bowl. But it feels luxurious to have a ceiling lamp all their own. In their old communal room, they relied on one dim bulb, shared between 2. Sunshine pours through the double-pane window of the main room, which faces south and looks out onto a courtyard, where identical apartment blocks stand in a cluster. Down below, they can see children already playing around a new jungle gym set in the center of the yard. A few sapling trees have been planted along footpaths, crisscrossing the courtyard. They are thin and fragile now, but one day they'll grow to provide shade. The husband and wife step to the window and, without a word, he slips an arm around her shoulders. They gaze out together, each recalling years in a cramped communal flat, the endless waiting and hoping. This apartment, albeit small and plain, represents a new life. The wife softly says, "Now we can raise our daughter in peace." The husband nods, still marveling at the quiet around them. No neighbors arguing just beyond a thin wall. No clatter of multiple pots in a shared kitchen. Just their own family's sounds. They start unpacking what little they have. The rolled rug is unfurled and placed in the main room. It's a bright woven carpet with geometric patterns of red, gold, and blue. Instantly, the room looks cozier. They set up a folding table near the window and place a vase with a single sprig of pussy willow on it, a gift from a friend for the new home. The daughter explores the kitchen with great interest. It's a narrow galley, just about 2 meters by 3, tiled in white. There's a brand new gas stove gleaming in the corner and a small enamel sink with running water. The child can't resist turning the faucet on and off, giggling at the fact that water comes right out of the wall on demand. In the old communal apartment, water came from a shared tap in the corridor. Here, it feels like magic to have their own faucet. On the countertop, the wife carefully sets out a few kitchen essentials: enamel pots, a frying pan, some plates. She opens a cabinet and places a precious item on the top shelf: a set of 6 matching tea glasses in silver holders, a wedding gift that until now was kept wrapped and hidden for a special occasion. Today, she decides, is special enough. Neighbors from other apartments on their floor trickle in to introduce themselves. A middle-aged woman from apartment 11 comes by with a loaf of black bread as a welcome gift, the age-old Russian tradition of bread and salt for new dwellings, though she shyly explains she has no salt to spare, just the bread. A young man from apartment 13 offers help to carry any heavy items. There aren't many. The heaviest piece was the rug, but the families exchange warm smiles and a few jokes about how they're all moving up in the world. There's a collective sense of optimism among these newcomers. Many came from similar cramped conditions or barracks, and now find themselves part of a small community of their own, in a brand new building. By afternoon, the family has arranged the basics. The daughter's little bed is assembled in the tiny bedroom, along with her one-eyed teddy bear propped on the pillow. In the main room, the radio, a brown Bakelite set, sits on a windowsill, quietly playing a cheerful tune from the light music orchestra. The wife stands in the kitchen, apron on, brewing tea on the new gas stove for the first time. She marvels at how quickly the kettle whistles. No more waiting for the old kerosene burner to heat up. From the window above the sink, she can see the courtyard now alive with activity. A few babushkas sit on benches chatting. A boy kicks a ball against a wall, scattering a cluster of pigeons. The laundry lines strung between buildings flutter with freshly washed clothes, colourful shirts and sheets absorbing the sun and swinging in the mild breeze. While the tea steeps, she steps onto the balcony. Yes, they even have a tiny private balcony. It's just a metal railing with a concrete slab floor, barely large enough for 2 people, but she immediately imagines growing a pot of flowers here come summer. From this vantage on the 3rd floor, she can see beyond the courtyard to a field where construction cranes dot the horizon, raising more housing blocks in the distance. The city seems to be expanding outward rapidly. She takes a deep breath of spring air. There's a scent of thawing earth and distant coal smoke, mixed with something fresh. Maybe optimism itself has a smell. Her husband joins her on the balcony, 2 steaming glasses of black tea in hand. He's placed the glasses in their silver holders, feeling this is a moment worth marking. They clink their teas gently. "To our new home," he says softly. They sip carefully. The glasses are hot, but the holders protect their fingers. The strong, fragrant tea, with a spoonful of sugar, each, no need to skimp today, invigorates them. Inside, their daughter is already curled up on the rug, thumbing through a picture book, the afternoon sun warming her. That evening, they host a very modest housewarming, just themselves and the new neighbors on either side. In the main room, they set the folding table with a clean white cloth. The neighbor from apartment 11 contributes boiled potatoes and pickled herring. The neighbor from 13 brings a jar of homemade pickles and a bottle of Georgian wine he'd been saving. The wife lays out her best plates and those matching tea glasses for later. They crowd around the little table, 6 adults in total, elbow to elbow, but full of goodwill. The conversation drifts from introductions, who works where, how old whose children are, to shared relief at leaving communal life. One neighbor jokes that now they'll have to learn how to cook just for their own family and not a whole corridor. Another comments, a tad more seriously, "We finally have silence at night." The little girl floats in and out of the adult gathering, snatching a pickle here, showing her book there, until she grows sleepy. Her mother takes her to the new bedroom and tucks her in, an occurrence still so novel. The child whispers, "Mama, I like our home," and falls asleep almost before the light is off. In the main room, the guests depart as the hour grows late, congratulating the family once more. Alone at last, the husband and wife sit together on the edge of their makeshift bed. The couch still just a mattress on the floor at this point, covers strewn invitingly. They are tired, but it's the happy kind of tired. The lamp on the ceiling casts a gentle glow on the bare walls. The husband turns the dial on the radio, finding a station playing soft classical music, the final movement of Tchaikovsky's Serenade for Strings, a soothing lullaby of a melody. In their own apartment, they can play the radio as quietly or as loudly as they want, without fear of disturbing a cranky neighbor through a paper-thin wall. But they keep it low now, as their daughter sleeps. They sit in silence for a while, sipping the last of the evening tea, which has gone cold, but still sweet. The wife leans on her husband's shoulder. He takes a deep breath and says, "Can you believe it? No knocking on the door for the toilet, no queue for the stove, just us." She smiles and nods, resting her head against him. Through the window, they watch the night settle over the new neighborhood. The courtyard is mostly dark now, save for a few lit windows here and there, where other families are also wrapping up their day, perhaps marveling at their first nights under a private roof, just as they are. For this young family, and millions like them, these new apartments mark the beginning of a more comfortable era of daily life. There will still be challenges, shortages of certain goods, the need to be frugal. But tonight, in their own home, those worries seem a world away. The wife gets up to turn off the radio and the overhead lamp. In the gentle darkness, the couple lays down to sleep, listening to the unfamiliar yet welcome sound of nothing. No clatter of a dozen others in a communal kitchen. No baby crying from the next room. Their daughter sleeps soundly behind her own door. Only the distant night noises of the city drift through the cracked window. The faint roar of a late trolleybus on the avenue. Maybe a dog barking somewhere. These sounds lull them, reminders that they are part of a larger community, but able to retreat to their own quiet haven. As they drift towards sleep, the husband murmurs, half to himself, "What a peaceful day." The wife, already half asleep, only squeezes his hand in reply. The room grows cooler as the spring night air filters in, but they are together under a thick quilt, warm with contentment. Tomorrow, their new routines will begin. The little girl's first day at the neighborhood kindergarten, the wife figuring out the timing of the gas stove to make breakfast, the husband catching a new bus route to his factory. But for now, they rest, secure in the knowledge that this little apartment is truly theirs, a private corner of the world where their family's life will unfold gently, day by day. Time moves forward once more, carrying with it quiet improvements in daily living. By the early 1960s, life in the Soviet Union has grown in small but meaningful ways, more comfortable for many, private apartments, new conveniences, a bit more privacy and space. Yet the simple joys remain much as before. We will soon peek into one of those simple joys, experiencing a summer's day through the eyes of children. A gentle summer breeze blows through tall pines, carrying the laughter of children and the distant hush of waves on a shoreline. We find ourselves at a young pioneers' summer camp in the late 1960s. It's early morning, and the sky is a brilliant blue, the air already warming with the promise of a sunny day. The camp is set in a beautiful location, a mix of woods and water. In fact, this particular camp is near the sea, with a sandy beach bordering the grounds on one side and fragrant pine forest on the other. It might not be the famous Artek in Crimea, the most elite of pioneer camps, known across the USSR and even hosting kids from other countries. But to the children here, it feels just as magical. At 7:30 a.m. sharp, a bugle call rings out, clear and bright, signaling the start of the day. In neat rows in front of their cabins, the campers gather for morning exercises. They are boys and girls aged about 9 to 14, all wearing their pioneer uniforms, white shirts, blue shorts or skirts, and the iconic red neckerchief tied smartly at the throat. Bare-legged and in canvas shoes, they stretch their arms and tilt their heads in unison as a counselor on a raised platform leads them in calisthenics. The exercises are light and fun. Arm circles, touching toes, a few jumps. Many of the children are still blinking sleep from their eyes, but the giggles slip out as they nearly bump into one another doing a bend or hop. A record player crackles with upbeat marching music to keep everyone in rhythm. After exercises, it's time for the flag-raising ceremony. In the center of camp stands a flagpole, and as the campers line up, two older pioneers solemnly hoist the bright red banner of the Young Pioneer Organization. All the children salute, fingers to temple, and sing the pioneer anthem in soft voices. In the background, the sea glints with the morning sun, and gulls wheel lazily above, as if they too are listening to the song. With the formalities done, the kids scatter toward the open-air dining hall for breakfast. Breakfast is simple but hearty. Bowls of warm manaya, kasha semolina porridge, topped with a spoonful of berry jam and a hard-boiled egg for each child. They sit on long wooden benches at rough tables, eating with the voracious appetites of youth. The chatter is endless. Plans for the day, teasing about who snored in the cabin last night, guesses about afternoon activities. A group of boys nearby compete to see who can balance a spoon on their nose the longest, until a counselor walks by and gently reminds them to finish up. The camp counselor staff are mostly young adults or college students, wearing white shirts with red scarves as well. They are friendly and enthusiastic, joining the children at the tables and asking how they slept, reminding them to apply sunscreen later, and so on. One counselor, a sun-browned girl, not much taller than the older campers, taps her mug for attention and announces the day's schedule. Morning swim at the beach, then group crafts, then lunch. After the rest hour, a hike to the viewpoint, and tonight, a a campfire. This is met with cheers, especially the campfire mention. Campfires are always a highlight. By mid-morning, the campers are down by the sea. The beach is a broad stretch of golden sand. The sun dances brightly on the gentle waves of the Black Sea, or perhaps it's a large lake. In either case, the water is calm and inviting. Children run laughing into the clear water in their modest swimsuits. The boys in striped trunks, the girls in simple one-piece suits of navy blue. The initial shrieks at the coolness of the water give way to delighted shouts as they splash one another and start swimming. A counselor, whistling an old folk tune, rows a little wooden boat just offshore, keeping an eye on the more adventurous swimmers who dog paddle out a bit farther. For those who aren't avid swimmers, the shoreline itself offers endless amusement. A trio of girls wade knee-deep, hand in hand, searching the shallows for pretty shells and smooth pebbles to add to their camp collections. A group of younger boys has started building a grand sandcastle near the water's edge, complete with a moat. They diligently haul wet sand in buckets, patting it into towers. One boy sticks a small red pioneer flag they made it, from a twig and a scrap of cloth on the highest tower of the sandcastle, declaring it a new fortress of socialism, which causes a wave of laughter among his friends. Lying on towels or directly on the sand, a few campers simply soak up the sunshine and the rare freedom of a lazy summer day. A 12-year-old girl with freckled cheeks and braids, who was initially homesick on day one, now closes her eyes contentedly, listening to the rhythmic hush of the waves and the happy squeals of her campmates. She's imagining writing a letter to her parents about all this, how at first she missed home, but now she wishes the camp could last all summer. After the swim, the children drip dry in the warm sun. Then everybody marches back to the cabins to change out of swimsuits. The rest of the morning is devoted to crafts. Under a grove of birch trees, tables have been set up with art supplies. Some children paint. There are easels facing the scenic view of the sea and forest, inspiring simple watercolor landscapes. Others try their hand at weaving friendship bracelets from colored threads or modeling little animals from clay. There's a relaxed hush under the trees as focus settles on creation. The only sounds are birds chirping overhead and the occasional murmur, "Pass me the green paint, please," or "Your fox looks so real." A counselor with a guitar softly strums a familiar pioneer tune, and a few kids hum along as they work. One boy, tongue sticking out in concentration, carefully paints a postcard-sized picture of the campsite. He's surprisingly talented. The shapes of the cabins and the flagpole are recognizable, and he captures the blue of the water with a bright stroke. He plans to give this painting to his favorite counselor at the end of camp. Nearby, two best friends giggle as they decorate each other with leaves and twigs. They've abandoned their craft project and are making forest crowns instead, pretending to be woodland princesses, until a counselor laughingly shoos them back to the tables. Lunch is hearty, bowls of cabbage soup and mashed potatoes with meatballs, with thick slices of rye bread on the side. The children, energized by swimming and fresh air, eat with gusto. After lunch comes the routine tiki chas, the quiet hour when everyone must rest. Back in their cabins, some children actually nap, sprawled on their bunks with sun-kissed cheeks and noses. Others lie quietly reading books. Many brought their favorite adventure novels or fairy tales from home. A cabin of older boys tries to suppress laughter as they quietly trade comic books. In one of the girls' cabins, the freckle-faced girl writes in her diary about the morning's fun, dotting her I's with hearts and pressing a found seashell into the page as a keepsake. The afternoon hike sets off once the sun's heat begins to mellow. Donning caps and carrying canteens, the campers walk in a long crocodile, line up a canteen, the forested hill led by two counsellors. The path winds under towering pine trees whose resinous scent perfumes the warm air. Sunlight filters through the canopy, making patches of light dance on the forest floor. As they climb, the children point out discoveries to each other. Look, a squirrel. These mushrooms are like umbrellas. Is that a cuckoo calling? The counsellors use the opportunity to share some nature knowledge. They show the kids a particularly large pine cone, explain how to tell a fir from a pine, and caution them not to touch unknown berries. When they reach the viewpoint, a cliff rock that opens to a panoramic view of the coastline and endless water beyond, the group lets out a collective, "Ooh!" The sea glitters far below, the camp visible as tiny toy-like specks of cabins. And beyond, on the other side, hazy mountains hug the horizon. They all sit down to rest, passing around a bottle of compote, sweet fruit drink, to refill their canteens. A couple of the older campers bravely start a round of a favorite hiking song, Vzvejte kostrami, Sinje noci, Rise Up, Campfires, in the Blue Nights, a classic pioneer campfire song. Their youthful voices ring out clear in the open air. The others join in, some shyly at first, then with enthusiasm. The forested hills echo with their melody. A few counsellors harmonize, clapping along. By the time the song finishes, even the shyest kids have chimed in on the refrain, and a little cheer goes up for their impromptu choir. Back down at camp by dusk, anticipation builds for the evening campfire. The children change into warmer clothes. The night will be cool by the water. Many don their camp-issued windbreakers and long pants, but keep their red scarves on proudly. Under a twilight sky of deepening purple, they gather on the beach where counsellors have built a big bonfire from driftwood and pine branches. The fire is lit just as the first stars appear. Whoosh goes the initial flame, and soon it roars upward, sparks flying like tiny stars themselves into the night. Everyone circles around on logs or beach blankets at a safe distance. Faces aglow in the firelight. One counsellor, guitar in hand, positions himself like the ringleader. "What shall we sing first, pioneers?" he asks with a grin. "Kostyur, Gori, campfire, burn bright," shouts a keen 11-year-old, and the counsellor obliges. They launch into a repertoire of beloved camp songs. Some are lively, clapping and fast strumming, making the kids tap their feet and laugh. Others are slow and sentimental, about friendship and the beauty of the homeland at night. During those, the children sway gently, gazing at the fire or up at the star-studded sky. The flames paint everyone's faces in warm orange tones. Marshmallows aren't common here, but the counsellors have brought black bread to roast on sticks. The kids toast chunks of rye bread at the fire's edge until they almost char, then pop the smoky, crispy bites into their mouths with delight. One girl carefully roasts an apple on a skewer. Its skin blackens, and the inside turns to hot, sweet mush, a treat she shares with her cabin mates. A faint smell of pine resin and sea salt mingles with the wood smoke, creating that unmistakable campfire aroma that etches itself in memory. As the evening deepens, the guitar-playing counsellor coaxes one more song out of the group, the unofficial anthem of camp life, "May There Always Be Sunshine." In soft unison, under the canopy of constellations, dozens of young voices sing, "Solnishko sveti, Jivi strana," sunshine, shine, long live our country. Some eyes brim with tears, not of sadness, but from the overwhelming emotion that often comes at such moments of camaraderie and beauty. Even a few counselors discreetly wipe their eyes, touched by the purity of the moment. The campfire ends with the group standing and shouting 3 hearty Eura. Cheers for the motherland, for the camp, and for friendship. Echoes of Eura roll across the dark waves and into the night. Bedtime in the cabins comes soon after. The children are pleasantly exhausted. In one cabin, as the girls tuck into their bunks, a counselor quietly walks in with a lantern. She speaks in a hushed tone. Did everyone enjoy today? A chorus of weary but happy yes answers her. She smiles and whispers, "Sleep well, my pioneers. Sweet dreams." As she leaves, the youngest girl in the cabin is already half asleep, murmuring to her friend in the next bunk, "Tomorrow will be even better." The friend yawns and responds, "Yes, good night." Within minutes, the cabins are filled with the soft sounds of deep breathing and an occasional sigh or rustle as a child shifts under their light blanket. A nearly full moon rises over the treetops, silvering the roofs of the camp buildings and the sands of the quiet beach. The campfire has died down to glowing embers, a few wisps of smoke curling up to join the evening mist. An owl hoots from the forest, and crickets serenade the sleepers with their rhythmic chirping. Under one cabin's window, left slightly open to the night, the salty sea breeze wafts in, caressing the sleeping children's faces. It carries the promise of another sunny day when morning comes. But for now, the entire camp is at peace. Each child, far from home but surrounded by new friends, sleeps soundly and safely, guarded by the gentle night, the watchful counselors, and the lingering warmth of shared songs and laughter. As the night deepens over the pioneer camp, we drift onward once again. Our journey through Soviet daily life continues, moving now from the carefree days of youth to the cherished traditions that united young and old alike. Ahead, the cozy glow of a family dacha and the joy of a holiday celebration await us. It's a sunny Saturday morning in the mid-1970s, and we arrive at a small dacha in the countryside. The dacha, a simple wooden cottage painted a soft green, sits on a 600 square meter plot, the classic 6/100ths of a hectare that many Soviet families were allotted for their garden retreats. A low fence surrounds the property, entwined with wild rose bushes and hops. Beyond it lies a patchwork of similar plots, each with its own little house, vegetable rows, and fruit trees. The air here is different from the city, fresh and sweet, carrying the sense of soil, dill, and blooming apple trees. A rooster crows somewhere in a neighboring yard, and from another plot comes the distant sound of a radio playing a cheerful folk tune. Our Dacha family, grandparents, parents, and 2 children, arrived late last night by the Elektrichka suburban train, eager to escape the city for the weekend. Now, with the morning light, their beloved summer haven comes alive. In front of the dacha, an early riser is already at work. Grandfather Victor, wearing old canvas trousers and a battered straw hat, turns the soil in a potato bed with his shovel. At 70, his movements are a bit slow, but steady. He pauses to straighten his back and gazes fondly at the neat rows of green sprouts he's cultivated. "We'll have a good crop this year," he mutters with a satisfied nod. Grandmother Zinaida is nearby, crouched between cabbage heads and tomato plants, armed with a watering can. She gently waters the base of each plant, careful not to wet the leaves too much, humming a lullaby-like folk song as she goes. Her face is wrinkled and tanned from many summers of gardening, and her kerchief is tied securely under her chin to keep off the morning sun. Beyond the vegetable patches, the parents are tending to other chores. The father, Sergei, is up on a small ladder by the side of the cottage, repairing a loose shutter. Each time he hammers a nail, the sound rings out in the stillness. The mother, Marina, carries a basket as she moves through the little orchard behind the house. She stops at each fruit tree, apricot, cherry, apple, checking the small developing fruits and plucking the occasional worm-eaten leaf. Under a sprawling cherry tree, she sets the basket down and begins gathering fallen twigs and dead branches. These will be useful for kindling when they heat the banya, sauna, later. And what of the children? 12-year-old Pavel and his little sister Anya, age 7, have been given the most joyous task of all, picking strawberries for breakfast. Armed with enamel bowls, they roam to the far end of the garden, where rows of strawberry plants lie under a protective mesh. The siblings lift the mesh carefully and crawl under, giggling. The strawberry patch is a treasure trove of red jewels hiding under fuzzy green leaves. Anya squeals each time she finds a particularly large berry and plucks it, the fruit staining her fingertips pink. Pavel, trying to appear mature, reminds her, "One for the bowl, then one for us," mimicking something their mother often says with a wink, meaning, "Don't eat them all before we weigh them." Nonetheless, both children sneak ripe strawberries into their mouths here and there, delighting in the sun-warmed sweetness that bursts on their tongues. By mid-morning, the family regroups near the cottage for a simple alfresco breakfast. They set a wooden table under a blossoming pear tree, where dappled sunlight dances on the white tablecloth. Grandmother brings out a samovar, polished brass glinting, and sets it on the table with tea ready. She also lays out slices of dense black rye bread and a dish of fresh butter. The children proudly offer their enamel bowls heaped with strawberries. Grandfather arrives with a handful of crisp radishes he pulled from the soil at the last minute. And the mother has brought a jar of honey, a precious treat obtained through a co-worker who keeps bees, to drizzle on the bread or into tea. They all sit together on benches and stools around the table. A light breeze rustles the pear blossoms, occasionally sending a petal drifting down onto someone's lap or into a teacup, prompting gentle laughter. The tea is poured into thick, handleless glasses, lightly sweetened with a spoon of sugar for the children, a dollop of that fragrant honey for the adults. Its steam mingles with the fresh scents of the garden. Conversation is lazy and comfortable, touching on small triumphs of the morning. "The cabbages are looking strong this year," Marina says, passing a piece of bread to Anya. "We'll be making plenty of sauerkraut come autumn." Zinaida nods enthusiastically. She loves fermenting cabbage and often jokes it's the secret to a long life. Victor boasts about his potatoes, predicting a yield big enough to share with the neighbors. Little Anya isn't as interested in crops. She tugs on her father's sleeve and points out a butterfly that has landed on a nearby marigold. It's a beautiful swallowtail, yellow and black. Everyone pauses to admire it as it flutters its wings slowly, as if showing off. "That's a good sign," Grandmother whispers. Butterflies mean the garden is healthy. They return to eating, spreading butter and honey on bread, crunching peppery radishes, and of course savoring the strawberries. The children's faces and fingers are soon smudged with red juice. "Tastes like summer," Pavel declares with a grin, popping another berry into his mouth. The grandparents chuckle. Zinaida raises her tea glass slightly, and offers a short toast. To the Dacha, may it give us many more summers of peace and plenty. Clinks of glasses and murmured cheers of agreement follow. In moments like this, they feel truly rich in the ways that matter. Good soil, hard work, and family around the table. After breakfast, the day's rhythm unfolds gently. The heat of noon approaches, so heavy work in the garden is set aside. In true Dacha tradition, it's time for a little rest. Grandfather retreats to a shaded nook by the shed, where he's strung an old canvas hammock between two birch trees. With a contented groan, he lowers himself into it. The hammock sways ever so slightly, and within minutes, Victor is snoring softly, the kind of deep, whistling snores that make the children giggle behind their hands when they tiptoe past. Grandmother has a different way to relax. She gathers some fresh currant leaves and chamomile flowers from around the plot and brews herself a small pot of herbal tea. Sitting on the cottage's front porch, she sips from her favorite porcelain cup, chipped but with a pretty blue cornflower pattern, and indulges in endless talk with her daughter Marina. They rock gently on a creaking wooden swing bench, discussing everything and nothing. The latest news about a neighbor's cow, memories of Marina's childhood summers here, the recipes they might try for preserving the upcoming harvest. Zenaida says she wants to teach little Anya how to make raspberry jam this year. She's young, but not too young to mash berries. She laughs. The thought of passing on these traditions to the next generation makes her eyes shine with pride. The children find their own form of midday respite. Having been shooed out of the sun, they spread a quilt under the sprawling oak at the back of the property, where it's cool and breezy. Pavel is nose deep in a book about space travel. He's utterly fascinated by cosmonauts these days and often dreams aloud of becoming one. Anya, meanwhile, arranges her doll and a couple of stuffed animals for a picnic on the grass. Soon, though, even their youthful energy yields to the lull of the summer day. Pavel's book slips from his fingers as he dozes, and Anya's pretend play quiets. One could peek over and see them lying on their backs, watching clouds float lazily by above the oak branches. The only sounds are the buzzing of a few bumblebees visiting clover flowers and the distant rhythmic thock of someone chopping wood on another plot. By late afternoon, everyone's awake and active again. Feeling a bit sticky from the day's warmth, the family decides it's the perfect time to fire up the banya, the rustic bathhouse at the edge of their plot. Grandfather and father haul buckets of water from the well and fill the banya's big metal tank. They light a fire beneath it and in the stove inside the little cedarwood hut. Soon, curls of smoke rise from the banya's chimney, carrying the distinctive aroma of birch wood. As they wait for the water to heat, grandmother lays out fresh linens and birch twigs tied into a vennick, a broom used for gentle skin whisking in the steam, an old tradition for health. When the banya is ready, they take turns in 2 shifts. The hut is small. First, the men and Pavel go in. Through the cracked door, laughter and a few exaggerated ooh-ah sighs of relief can be heard as they adjust to the steam's intensity. They throw water on the hot stones. Psh! A burst of vapor hisses, and one can imagine the wave of heat that envelops them. Grandfather Victor good-naturedly swats his son and grandson with the vennick, the birch leaves, releasing a refreshing foresty fragrance in the humid air. They emerge, pink-cheeked and glowing, wrapped in towels and grinning. Next, mother, grandmother, and little Anya take their turn. Grandma keeps the steam milder for the child, sitting on a lower bench with her and gently pouring warm water over Anya's shoulders with a ladle. The girl giggles, It's like a secret, warm, rainy hideaway in here. Marina, on the top bench, closes her eyes, relishing how the heat relaxes every muscle. In the quiet between ladlings, they can hear faint melodies of an accordion being played 2 Dacha plots over someone always strikes up music on Saturday evenings. By the time the 3 ladies emerge from the banya, skin flushed and minds clear, the sun is low and golden. Now comes one of the best parts of Dacha life, the leisurely evening. Clean and refreshed, the family gathers around an outdoor grill made of bricks. Father Sergei has lit a small charcoal fire. On metal skewers, chunks of marinated meat pork they brought from the city, soaked since morning, in onions, vinegar, and herbs, sizzle and drip fat onto the coals, flaring up delicious-smelling smoke. While he tends the shashlik, turning the skewers now and then, mother and grandmother set up the outdoor table again. This time, it's a veritable feast. Simple, but ample. There are boiled new potatoes, tossed with dill and butter, a cucumber, and tomato salad, the first greenhouse cucumbers, and some store-bought tomatoes, all crowned with fragrant dill, a plate of salted herring with spring onions, and of course, a big heap of crunchy pickled cucumbers from last year's jars. To drink, they have kvass, a cool, slightly tangy, fermented bread drink, brought in a big ceramic jug and poured into each person's mug. They actually got this kvass from a yellow tanker on the street before coming out. Those iconic mobile kvass barrels on summer corners. It tastes all the better for having been chilled in the well since morning. They dine under the open sky, at that magical hour when day and night embrace. The horizon is streaked with pink and orange, and a crescent moon peeks up boldly above the tree line. The grilled meat is tender and smoky. The family can't help but sigh with happiness at the first bites. Pavel insists on making sandwiches of everything, stuffing meat and herring and salad all together on a slice of bread, prompting playful groans of, "Oh, Pasha," from his parents. But he just grins and takes a big bite. Anya has discovered the joy of dipping boiled potato in coarse salt and crunching into a pickled cucumber between bites. She declares in herself chef and starts assembling a funny face on her plate with a potato for a nose and cucumber slices for eyes. As plates empty and stomachs fill, conversation meanders lazily, much like at breakfast. They talk about which fruit trees need pruning come fall, who in the village has the best honey for sale, and how the children have grown. Grandmother marvels that Pavel will be a teenager soon. Grandfather brings up a memory. "I remember, about this time of evening when I was a boy here, I would listen for the nightingale," he says, cocking his head. Everyone falls silent for a moment, tuning in. Right on cue, from somewhere in the twilight grove, comes a series of melodious whistles and trills, the famed nightingale's song. A collective smile appears around the table. They stay quiet a bit longer to enjoy the nocturnal serenade, each lost in their own thoughts, yet sharing the moment wholly. The last light fades. One by one, stars appear. First the brightest, planet Venus. Then the delicate sprinkle of the Milky Way across the dark canvas of the night. At the Dacha, far from city lights, the sky is a breathtaking dome of infinity. The children, tired from a full day, lean against their parents, but no one rushes to go inside. Instead, Grandmother Zinaida disappears into the house briefly and returns with an old guitar, its wood scuffed, one string replaced, not quite in tune, but serviceable. She hands it to Sergei. who was known in his youth for strumming a tune or two. He protests jokingly, Mama, I haven't played in ages." But under the pleading looks of his family, he relents. He tunes the guitar by ear, plucking and adjusting the pegs. Then begins a soft, familiar melody, the opening of Moscow Nights. The quiet, nostalgic song flows into the warm summer night. Marina and Zinaida hum along, their voices blending with the gentle chords. The children's eyes droop, lulled by the song and the day's adventures. A shooting star zips silently overhead, unnoticed by the dozing little ones, but seen by both mother and grandmother, who catch each other's eyes and share a hopeful smile, each silently making a wish. Finally, they decide it's time for bed. The dishes can wait till morning. Father scoops up Anya, who has fallen asleep with her head on his arm, and carries her into the cottage. Pavel, half asleep but insisting he's not, trudges in on his own and plops onto the bed he shares with his sister when at the Dacha. The adults quietly tidy just enough to not attract night critters, covering the salad bowl with a cloth, putting away the honey. The night is cool, so they close the shutters but leave the windows slightly open for a fresh breeze. One by one, the cottage's rooms go dark as lanterns and lamps are blown out. The family slips into deep, contented sleep, the kind earned by a day of honest work and joyful relaxation. Outside, moonlight silvers the garden where sweat and love were poured into the earth earlier. The coals in the grill glow faintly, keeping company with the fireflies that blink among the beanstalks. Somewhere a barn owl screeches, a sharp note in the otherwise silent midnight. In the distance, if one listens closely, one might hear the far-off rumble of the last train returning to the city. But here, in this Dacha enclave, it might as well be another world. All is still. Under the eaves, grandmother and grandfather sleep on a pull-out cot, and she dreams of her childhood in this very place, of summers that seem to stretch out forever. In the next room, the parents curl up with the children, breathing softly in sync, recharging their spirits with the energy of the countryside. The garden, the trees, and the little house stand guard over them, as if nature itself places a blanket of protection over her drowsy beloveds. As the dawn is yet to come, and the Dacha rests in profound peace, our journey prepares to take its final turn. We have seen ordinary days and special occasions through the seasons. Now, before we bid goodnight to this voyage through time, we will peek into one more cherished scene, a cozy winter evening, aglow with holiday spirit, where family and friends gather in joy and quiet wonder. Snow is falling softly outside the apartment window, blanketing the city in hush. It is New Year's Eve, 1985, and inside a cozy two-room flat, preparations for the night's celebration are in full swing. A crackling radio on the shelf plays gentle holiday tunes, occasionally interrupted by a jovial announcer talking about the coming year, and the warm, buttery scent of baking dough wafts from the kitchen. In the living room, a lush green fir tree stands proudly in one corner, reaching almost to the ceiling. The family, mother, father, their two children, and a visiting great-aunt, are trimming it with care. The father lifts his young son up so he can place a shiny red star atop the tree. Meanwhile, mother unwraps tissue paper from a box of precious ornaments collected over decades. Delicate glass baubles in shapes of pine cones and birds, whimsical figurines of cosmonauts and woodland animals, and strings of tiny lights. The great-aunt claps her hands gently as two metal icicles are hung. They tinkle like little bells. "Be careful, those are older than your papa," She tells the kids about some ornaments, remembering how cheap and cheerful they were to buy back in the day for a few kopecks each. They also carefully wind silvery tinsel around the branches and drape a few strands of rain, foil garland, for extra sparkle. The tree's fragrance, that fresh piney smell, fills the room, mingling with the aroma of tangerines and chocolates waiting in bowls on the table. At the base of the tree, they've placed it in a sturdy bucket of sand. The children excitedly cover the bucket with fluffy cotton batting to simulate snow, a family tradition that goes back to their grandparents' childhoods. When all is done, the father steps back and plugs in the lights. With a collective "ooh," the tree comes alive with twinkling multicolored lights reflecting off glass and tinsel. In the dim, late afternoon light of the room, it's truly enchanting. The children, a boy of 8 and a girl of 12, circle the tree to admire each ornament. The boy finds his favorite, a cosmonaut figurine with a little red flag, and makes sure it's in a prominent spot. The girl gently touches a particularly ornate bauble, painted with a winter sleigh scene. "This one was Babushka's, right?" she asks. Mother nods, smiling with a touch of melancholy. "That ornament is older than she is. It was bought the year after the war. It and others like it are carefully kept in a shoebox all year and brought out each New Year's, connecting the family to holidays past." In the kitchen, the reality is bustling. On the counter sits a grand bowl of salad, Olivier, the famous Russian potato salad, chilling to let the flavors meld. Mother spent the morning boiling potatoes, carrots, and eggs, dicing everything finely and mixing in peas, pickled cucumbers, and chunky homemade mayonnaise. They might not have the original Olivier's exotic ingredients like grouse or crayfish tails, but their simpler version is a must-have on New Year's, and to them, it tastes just as splendid. Paperlanternwriters.com. Nearby, there's a platter of herring under a fur coat, layered beet and herring salad, its magenta top glistening, and a crystal dish filled with tender piroshki pastries that Great-Aunt Tamara rolled and filled with cabbage yesterday. On the stove, a small saucepan of syrup simmers with orange peel and spices, soon to be poured over a batch of homemade gingerbread cookies, shaped like little stars and fir trees, currently baking in the oven. Each time Mother opens the oven to peek, a wave of sweet spice aroma billows out, making everyone's mouth water. And then there are the special treats that only appear this time of year. A bowl overflowing with mandarin oranges sits on the dining table. Their bright orange skins perfume the room with a citrusy sweet smell that, for every Soviet child and adult, is the true scent of the New Year holiday. These mandarins came all the way from Abkhazia, in the Caucasus, a winter train shipment that arrived at the local market a few days ago. Father had stood in a long queue to get a couple of kilos, and the family has carefully saved them for tonight. Peeling one now would be almost sacrilege. They know that at midnight they will be popping the segments like candy. As late afternoon turns to evening, the family members change into their best at-home clothes, not too formal, but nice. The boy insists on wearing a little bow tie with his shirt because he wants to look like a gentleman on TV. The girl ties a blue ribbon in her hair. Mother dons a simple dark blue dress and a string of faux pearls, and Father a clean white shirt under his sweater. Great-Aunt Tamara, with her silver hair freshly permed, wears a festive brooch of a snowflake on her blouse. They want to greet the new year looking their finest, even if it's just the 4 of them in their cozy apartment. By 8 p.m., the New Year's table is set. They cover the table with their good embroidered cloth, reserved for special occasions. Out come the treasured dishes, the cut glass crystal salad bowl, now heaped with olivier, the gilded rim plates that were a wedding gift long ago, and matching crystal goblets for drinks. In the center, they place a chilled bottle of Sovetskoye Champanskoye, Soviet champagne, its green glass shimmering. It's tradition to have a bubbly toast at midnight. And while it's not true, champagne, this sweet sparkling wine, is beloved and reserved for only the happiest occasions. Around the table, all the dishes are laid out. The salads, pickles, cold cuts of sausage and smoked fish, deviled eggs sprinkled with dill, slices of rye and white bread, and a little plate of black caviar. Yes, real sturgeon caviar, just about 100 grams, obtained by some miracle. Actually, Father managed to trade a spare car tire for that tiny jar of caviar through a co-worker. Such is the currency of favors. The caviar gleams like dark pearls on the plate, and they'll savor it sparingly on buttered bread, making it last. Everyone oohs appreciatively as Mother carries in the last platter. A roasted chicken, the golden centerpiece of the meal, garnished with sprigs of parsley and segments of those precious mandarins. The children can't help but clap. A feast indeed. They know too that many of these foods were not easy to come by. Only yesterday, Mother and great-aunt returned, triumphant and exhausted from a day of hunting and gathering. Sugar from one shop, after an hour in line. Mayonnaise and sausages from a friend's. Connection at a worker's canteen. The chicken and eggs from a farmer relative on the city's outskirts. We always manage, every year, Mother says with pride and a wink. Despite everything, we make it special. She recalls aloud how even in leaner years, grandparents would conjure treats, a point Tamara affirms with a story of 1972, when shops were bare, but they still somehow baked a cake and found oranges for the children. It's like a little New Year's magic, she says. The children listen wide-eyed to these tales of resourcefulness, feeling grateful for the abundance before them. Now paperlanternwriters.com. It's now 10 p.m. The family has been nibbling and enjoying the spread in leisurely fashion for a while. Outside, through frosty windows, they see neighbours in other flats across the courtyard also gathered at their tables, shadows clinking glasses and laughing in warm, brightly lit rooms. Occasionally, a muffled pop of a distant firecracker echoes, some early celebrations in the streets. But the true excitement is still building. In the living room, the television is on, an essential part of a Soviet New Year's Eve. Right now it's showing the annual variety show, Little Blue Light, a stage brightly adorned with snowflake decorations and garlands, where favorite singers and comedians perform. The family drifts back and forth from table to TV. They chuckle at a silly skit where an actor dressed as Father Frost jokes with a puppet rabbit, and they sing along when a well-known crooner launches into 5 Minutes, the classic New Year's song. The children sprawl on the carpet, entranced by the music and dance numbers. This year, the program is especially lively, with performers from different Soviet republics in colorful traditional costumes, reminding everyone of the joyful diversity of their big country. Great-aunt Tamara occasionally glances at the clock. 11:15, 11:30. The anticipation in the room grows, palpable. The adults pause eating to clear a few plates, making space for champagne glasses and dessert, and tidy up. The children are getting sleepy from all the food and warmth, but each time their eyes droop, another burst of energy arrives. Not long now, Mother says, stroking the boy's hair, and he nods, fighting off a yawn. At 11:50 p.m., the TV program shifts to a live broadcast from Moscow. The screen shows the Kremlin's Spasskaya Tower, its ruby star glowing atop, and the enormous clock face looming against the night sky. They turn up the volume slightly. The presenter announces the General Secretary's annual New Year's address. Tonight, it's Gorbachev's turn to speak. His kind voice shares messages of unity, hope for peace, and improvements to come. Though the children only half listen to the words, the adults are silent and reflective. It's a moment of connection with the entire nation. Great Aunt Tamara dabs her eye. She always gets a bit emotional, remembering absent family members at this hour, those who've passed or live far away. As the speech ends, the final minute of the year ticks away. The view switches to the Kremlin clock full screen. The family gathers closely around the TV, champagne bottle now uncorked with a gentle pop. Not too early. Father is well practiced at timing. Each holds a charged glass, even the children, who have fizzy pear cider in theirs, so they can join the toast. Bong! The first deep chime of midnight resounds. They all stand, eyes shining. Bong! Bong! The clock tolls on. 12 times it strikes, echoing as if all of Russia hears it together. With the final bong, fireworks explode on the TV screen over Red Square in a blaze of color. Simultaneously, distant booms and crackles outside their own windows signify locals welcoming the new year with their own modest fireworks, or more often, banging pots and shouting in the cold night air. S Novym Godem! S. Novim Godem! Happy New Year! Everyone exclaims, their voices overlapping. Hugs all around. The children leap into their parents' arms, and then to great aunts. Kisses on cheeks, tight squeezes. The father raises his glass high. To the new year, may it bring health and happiness to us all. They clink, a delicate chorus of crystal, and take sips of the golden bubbly. The kids gulp their sweet cider. The adults' champagne is sweet and tickling. Not exactly French, but in this moment, it might as well be the nectar of celebration itself. They each eat a mandarin slice for good luck, a family custom, savoring the burst of sweet juice and bright flavor. A tiny sun in the dark of winter. The children giggle because the fruit's stickiness coats their fingers and lips, and Great Aunt Tamara playfully pretends to steal a segment from the boy, making him laugh. Now comes a surprise knock on the door. Who could that be so late? Mother acts, puzzled, though the kids know exactly who or what is about to appear. They rush to the door and fling it open. There stands Ded Moroz, grandfather, Frost, and his granddaughter Snegorochka. Well, in truth it's their jovial neighbor, Alexander, in a red robe and fake beard, with his teenage daughter in a silver blue coat and a crown of snowflakes. But the illusion is delightful. Ho ho ho, Happy New Year, Ded Moroz bellows. Snegorochka hands out small gifts to the children from a sack, a box of chocolates and a puzzle for the boy, a craft set and a doll outfit for the girl. The children knew this would happen. It does every year thanks to neighborly coordination. But they still bounce with excitement and recite a little poem they prepared as thanks. Spasibo, Dedushka Moroz, что счастье нам сегодня принес. Thank you, Grandfather Frost, for bringing us happiness today. The rhyming couplet earns applause from all. Ded Moroz pats their heads, gives a booming laugh and a wink to the adults, and off he goes into the snowy night, joking that he has many more rooftops to visit. The children watch from the doorway as the costumed pair disappears down the stairwell, likely off to cheer another household or two in the building. Back inside, the excitement gradually winds down. The TV now shows a concert of classical music. The children recognize the ballet, Swan Lake on screen, the delicate Dance of the Little Swans, a traditional after-midnight program. They munch on chocolates from Dead Morose's box, and everyone indulges in the final treat, Napoleon cake that Mother made yesterday, layers of puff pastry and custard cream softening into a sweet, heavenly slice. Even though they're full, how can one not have dessert on New Year's? With cake and the last sips of champagne, they toast again, this time more quietly, to loved ones not present, remembering grandparents who have passed, cousins far away, dear friends across the country. Glasses clink softly. Great Aunt Tamara closes her eyes and whispers a quick prayer of well-being for all, even though it's not quite orthodox to do so in official atheistic times. In her heart, it feels right. The hour grows late. 1 a.m., then 2 a.m. Great Aunt Tamara, who is staying overnight, has nodded off contentedly in an armchair, the striped cat curled in her lap equally asleep. The father's eyelids are heavy as he watches the ballet, mesmerized by Tchaikovsky's music and the flowing movements on the screen. Mother begins to gather plates, but father stops her gently. Leave it for tomorrow. Tonight is for resting. She smiles and agrees, settling next to him on the sofa and putting her head on his shoulder. The children are lying on the carpet by the tree, staring up at its twinkling lights, which they insisted stay on all night. The boy fights sleep, clutching a new toy car he's been zooming around quietly. The girl cradles her doll, now dressed in the new outfit, and blinks slowly, each blink longer than the last. Outside, the city is unusually alive for this hour. Distant sounds of merriment, occasional cracks of leftover firecrackers, shouts of "Es Novim Godum" between apartment balconies. But inside this home, a peaceful lull has descended. The tree lights cast a gentle multicolored glow on the walls and the sleeping faces. One of the TV's last images before the broadcast concludes is the Kremlin Tower against the starry sky, reminding that this moment, this hopeful quiet after midnight, is shared across 11 time zones of the Soviet land. Mother quietly rises and turns off the television. The sudden silence reveals the soft whisper of snow brushing the window. She looks around at her family, Great Aunt Tamara lightly snoring, husband and children drifting in and out, and her heart feels full. Es Novim Godum, she mouths silently, thanking fate for another year together. By 3 a.m., all the lights are off, except the fairy glow of the tree. The family members have moved to beds or simply fallen asleep where they relaxed. The children nestled on the couch under a wool blanket. Great Aunt reclined in the armchair with a shawl over her, the parents side by side on a makeshift bed of cushions on the floor, too tired to move further. In the stillness, the tree stands guard like a glittering sentinel, its reflection doubling in the window glass, along with the gentle drift of snow outside. The city's noises have faded as even revelers go to sleep. A profound calm envelops the home. As the family slumbers in their various cozy spots, one by one, the tree lights blink off, set on a timer by father earlier, until only one tiny blue bulb shines, and then it too fades. The new year has truly arrived, in silence and in peace. In a few hours, dawn will creep in, touching the empty plates and ribbon scraps with pale light, and they will wake to share stories of funny dreams, or perhaps go out to play in the fresh snow. But for now, In this gentle pause, all is at rest. Mother and father unconsciously reach for each other's hand, even in sleep. The children cuddle nearer under their soft blanket, and the cat jumps onto an ottoman, curling into a furry ball. A final silvered midnight gust sweeps against the window, rattling a stray evergreen branch, then calming, as if the old year has breathed its last, and the new one sighs contentedly in. Our journey through these memories must gently come to an end. We have strolled through seasons and years, through morning and night, seeing that in every era, whether times were hard or times were hopeful, the simple joys of daily life, the comfort of home, and the love of family endured. Now, as you drift towards sleep, carry these gentle echoes with you: the hush of snow in a village lane, the murmur of a summer forest at dusk, the glow of a lamp through a frosty window on New Year's Eve. They are like soft lanterns lighting the path to dreams. May your own night be as peaceful and warm. Sleep well.